I'm April. You guys are going to be here with me for the next hour. And who here is so excited to be actually at an expo, at a convention right now? It's amazing to be around people. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm a cannabis nurse, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do and what I can do for the industry. So I will hopefully have some time for questions after this. So if you have questions, write them down, put them in your phone. Ask me afterwards or come see me. I've also got some collateral, some of the stuff we've done up here as well. So, all right. So the name of this seminar or event is Ask a Cannabis Nurse. It's really just me telling you about what I do as a cannabis nurse. But if you do have questions for a cannabis nurse, again, ask me afterwards. But that's the name, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So basically, you want to know why I'm here talking to you, what I do, right? And, you know, I want to be able to share some of the best practices that I've seen in the industry that really help patients fully experience the medical benefits of cannabis. Some dispensaries, manufacturers are doing some things that are really, really great, and I'm going to share a few of those with you. And then I also want to talk about a new patient support program that we're going to be launching really soon. All right, has anyone ever heard of a cannabis nurse? No? Oh, they have. Those are my girls over there. So I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 15 years. I got a master's degree in public health, and it was after my son experienced a traumatic brain injury. And for about 2 years, conventional treatment just didn't work. Physical therapy, speech therapy, tried 12 different medications. Nothing helped him. And then we finally started to think about cannabis. And within 2 weeks, my son was able to get out of bed without having mobility issues. He was migraine free. He was able to go back to school. So it was amazing. It worked right in front of my eyes. And then I immediately started talking to everyone else about it. The doctors I was working with, the other nurses I was working with, patients I was working with, because, working as a nurse for hospitals or anywhere, cannabis is always categorized as a drug. Cocaine, heroin, cannabis is right there. We were never taught the medical benefits of cannabis. So what does a cannabis nurse do? Well, it's not quite a certification yet. You probably will hear some women or men say that they're cannabis nurses. I do have several friends who claim they're cannabis nurses. And it's because we feel that we have a really good, deep understanding of how cannabis works medically. And we, of course, have that background of being nurses as well. So a lot of nurses have certification exams that, like critical care nurses, every different specialty, there's a different certification program. So I'm working with the American Cannabis Nurses Association. We're hoping within the 2 years there will be an official certification for cannabis nurses. So that'll be really cool because they'll have to take a test and they'll have to pass and they'll have to have so many hours working with patients to get that certification. But yeah, unfortunately, right now there's not that test, and there's just a ton of things out there. There's probably 100 different programs I can take to be certified in some sort of cannabis nursing. We're really looking for something that's backed by the Board of Nursing, which they're the organization that basically writes the rules for registered nurses, licensed practical nurses everywhere. So there's a couple of different things we can do. We can teach patients. That's what I started doing. We can teach the industry. We can teach just, bud tenders. We can, lots of cannabis nurses are writing copy for CBD companies. They're writing books, care plans for patients. There's an assortment of things that nurses can do with this industry based on their experience. So as I said, I have a master's degree in public health, so education has always been my focus. So this, with my son's experience and all of the success stories I have heard since, I think that, cannabis is the perfect job for me, the perfect industry for me, because, as you know, in healthcare, it's not really about healthcare, it's about writing people a prescription and sending them out the door, ordering a test, ordering a procedure, and they're not actually ever getting better. But when patients start to use cannabis, use cannabinoids, and see the benefits of terpenes and just see the benefits of more natural medicines, their lives actually do change and they do actually get better. So Cannabis Care Team is what I spend most of my time doing right now. And again, there's a variety of different things we do, but I work with nurses and I work with a registered dietitian. And we just want to elevate the cannabis industry. We want the focus really to be on education. We want people to not be so overwhelmed when they're getting started. I know how overwhelming it was for me when I was trying to figure out how much and what I was going to be giving my 15-year-old son, right? There was tons of scientific information, but there wasn't a lot of information or education for the beginner or for like the cannabis naive patient. So there's just some more information about what I do. So our mission is really to provide education, support, and advocacy to patients that need to experience the medical benefits of cannabis and how to consume it safely. I think that's really key to what we do. We want to ensure that patients have access to safe, quality cannabis products. And so we work, we have relationships with some testing facilities, with some manufacturers, with some dispensaries, because I want to know that when I'm sending a patient into a dispensary to buy a certain product, I want to know that that is a legitimate product, and I want to know the background of that organization and make sure that, their patients are their top priority. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how nurses make the industry money in a little bit, so I'll get to that. All right, and this is just really what some of the things that I do with Cannabis Care Team. Caregivers, you can have those in Oklahoma. So a lot of people are growing for the first time. As you're aware, they have lots of questions. Not only do they grow medicine for patients, but they need to know how to grow it safely. They need to know what to look for, and they need to help a patient be able to pick out an appropriate strain for the symptoms that they're trying to treat. So I help with that. Yesterday I was at Seed Cannabis in Tulsa. Has anyone ever heard of them? No. Is everyone in here from Oklahoma? No, where are you from? Texas. I love Texas. I'm going to move there someday. Any other states? New Orleans. Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. Where are you? Arizona. Very cool. Cool, yay. I love the Southwest. So I am in Kansas City. I did grow up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I've been spending a lot of time in Oklahoma. And so Seed Cannabis, they held an event yesterday where they had patients come in, and I had a presentation, and for an hour and a half, I talked about how to get started with cannabis. These are women who are in their 60s. They have a lot of pain, they have a lot of issues, they're on a ton of medications, and they want to use cannabis, but they're scared. They don't want to get high, they don't want to smoke, and it's really overwhelming for them. So I appreciate that Seed has these patient events that they're putting on. They've shown their patients that they value education, or they've shown their customers. So that's kind of what I do when it comes to patient events. There's not been a lot in the last 6 months, of course, so most everything we do is virtually these days. And then business consulting. So there's a CBD company out of Oregon who, they need help from a healthcare professional. They need help understanding like what you can say and what you can say, or how to tell someone that this may help their condition. And nurses can do that. All right, so last night I was reading something, I think it was from the National Academy of Science, and they were talking about the importance of nurses. And I think that I have a quote up there, and it just reminded me of something that I wanted to share, that like Nurses, as we know, are the most trusted professional in the world. Nurses can do great things and can really have the opportunity to change healthcare in general. And the National Academy of Sciences wants nurses to be a part of that change in healthcare. And this is, a lot of times we are in medical cannabis programs. So nurses, I think, are going to be an integral part in elevating that. All right, so do we have dispensary owners here? Okay, all right, so, there's a lot of things that your staff can be doing to help patients figure out what the most appropriate products for them. There's a lot of education that nurses can help you come up with. Just how to engage customers. A 60-year-old woman wants that engagement to look a little bit differently than maybe like a 21-year-old man. I mean, there's just demographics, and you have to have a well-trained staff who knows how to manage and really do the intake for all those people. And you want to make sure that you're selling them good, appropriate products so they come back and they come back and they come back and they, they tell everyone else about your dispensary and the products that you have sold them that really help them. Because honestly, a lot of patients I talk to have not received products that were probably the most appropriate and have had a bad experience. So I really want to prevent that. So these are some statistics. There was a study put out, Huig was the author, but so they studied, I think they surveyed all these dispensary workers, and they found, and this is obvious, right? 94% of dispensary workers are actually providing specific guidance or recommendations to their customers, which is what they want. A customer wants to come in and they want someone to tell them what to get, right? However, only 20% have received any kind of training in regards to medical cannabis, or 13% have not received or have received any kind of training on the science of cannabis. So 78%, I don't have the statistic on there, are actually providing this specific guidance and advice based on their own personal experience. I talk to people about my personal experience and my personal story. I think it does help send a message, but because we're such individuals, we have our endocannabinoid systems are completely different. We're all on different medications. It's, probably a good idea to be making those recommendations based off like science and what's been studied versus how something affected us. So Sue is a lady who called me last week, and I just want to tell you a really quick story about her. So Sue, I don't know how she got my number, but she's from Oklahoma, and she called me and she said she had her card, she'd been into the dispensary, and the first time she was sold a vape cartridge and some pre-rolls because they were on sale. So she takes those home. She's never tried cannabis before. First thing she tries is a pre-roll. She lights it. She's like, oh my God, this is disgusting. I've never smoked anything in my life. Why would I do this? So of course she never, is gonna use those, right? She put it out. A couple hours later, she tries the vape cartridge and it makes her cough, it hurts her throat, she's miserable. She's like, no, I can't do this. Because there's some education that goes along with, just inhaling, using a vape. That does actually take some education, and it does take some practice. So she went back to the dispensary. She said, hey, I don't like the vape cartridge. I don't like the pre-rolls. What else can you give me? So they send her home with RSO. So Sue goes home, and she tries the RSO, and she can't get out of bed for 2 days. So, and the 2 days after that, she feels so hungover that she really can't function. So she calls me like the next day because she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to work for me. I've spent all this money is what she says, right? So I think it's important that, we're educating patients, of course, and we're selling patients appropriate products, and we don't necessarily have to, we don't have to, great, pre-rolls are on sale, but those pre-rolls may not be suitable for every person that comes in. So Sue is just a common story. I hear it all the time from every different state. People call me and they were sold something and they had a bad experience, and I just worry that that's going to prevent them from ever trying it again. All right, so customer education, of course, we do a lot of that. When it comes to even manufacturers, when it comes to dispensaries, I mean, any aspect of the industry, I think education is key. Educational events, wherever you're located, to just talk to customers. They need to learn about the endocannabinoid system. They need to learn about the science behind cannabis, because once they understand it, they're going to be behind it and, absolutely tell everyone they know about it, because it's not necessarily something that they have to feel, right? It can be working in their body and they don't even have to feel it. So just understanding that, the education is so important. So there's just a couple ideas, some things that we're going to be doing. So, it could be either topic or condition specific, but Fibromyalgia Friday, there's a lot of women who are diagnosed with fibromyalgia and they have a lot of questions about particular products that may work best for them. So, patient consultations are also a really big one, and I know a lot of dispensaries do have patient consultation rooms, but, maybe think about staffing that with a nurse one day a week. People want to talk to licensed healthcare professionals. All right, so if your customer feels like they know what's supposed to be happening in their body and like they know what to expect, they're gonna be more likely to experience success. It's pretty common terminology in the medical cannabis world to start low and go slow, right? Well, sometimes when you start low and go slow, it can take someone a couple weeks before they're really starting to feel those medical benefits. So as long as they know that, as long as they know what to expect, I think that's really important. And it's not, it may not be from that half a gummy that they take the first time, it's just, share those clear expectations with them. Just find fun things to do to get more customers in the door, right? Those people who, like the women who I was talking to yesterday, they're scared to take cannabis, they're scared to get high, but once they do it, they love it, and they, are so grateful that they finally did. So education, again, the most important thing. So Sue is not going to go back to the dispensary who sold her the pre-rolls and the vape cartridge, which there are lots of women who love vape cartridges, but and the RSO, she's not going to go back. She's going to find a different one, and that's just really unfortunate because, if they would have potentially sold her the right thing in the first place, they could have gained a customer for life. She would have brought her sister in, she would have brought her cousin in, she would have brought her mom in, right? So Silverleaf, Oklahoma City is a dispensary in Oklahoma City, and they cater to the senior population. So I want to talk about them, and I'm going to talk about another dispensary who I think are doing new, innovative things that we can all learn something from. So isn't that old man cute? Don't we want our grandfathers to all look like that, right? That big smile on their face. So their focus, again, is seniors. And they know what their customers need. They've been working in the long-term care industry for years. They have just so much experience. One is, it's a husband and wife team. One is a nurse and one is an executive person. And they have just done a wonderful job. Every single thing in their store is appropriate for patients. And every single thing that they do is dedicated and geared towards seniors. They really know what they're doing. There's, all these things with seniors like skin issues. They're on so many medications. So you have to be really careful when you're selling cannabis to seniors or when they're taking it. So they've just done an excellent job. So I think that, you find a target and you focus on it, and, they've they're doing that with seniors, and I'm just really happy to see that they are increasing the access for those people. They're really involved in the like long-term care association of Oklahoma, which is great because I'm from Missouri, and hospitals and long-term care will not even talk about cannabis yet. So they've worked really hard in the community to make a name for themselves. All right, Robot Farmer. Anyone heard of them? Okay. So they're in Tulsa. And so I'm from Kansas City, and of course, like the first dispensaries I went to, really to do my secret shopping to see if I could find places to send my patients to. I kept hearing about Robot Farmer. So I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go check it out, right? To see what they're doing and why people keep telling me to go down there. So Robot Farmer, I mean, it's a brand, it's a culture, you know, what they've developed. They have this like really beautiful artwork, and it's, you know, more of an experience when you go in. It's not just going into a dispensary to buy cannabis. It's like you're going into the art gallery. So they've done a really great job and have really found their brand and what to focus on. You know, I'm sure you all have like 50 stickers in your bags by this point, right? So they sell their stickers because people want to represent them. So that's what they've done with their brand. They don't give stuff away. They want people to buy it because people value that brand. And then that's not the name, or that is the name of the dispensary, Verdes in New Mexico. They are actually really utilizing nurses, so I'm going to talk about them. So they started using licensed nurses in their dispensary, and this is what they saw. So they saw a 300% increase in sales, or in revenue, a 500% increase in monthly new patient and registrations, and then 120 increase in word of mouth referrals, which is like something that every dispensary owner wants, right? Those kind of numbers. And it was just by having nurses, like a couple nurses on staff or part-time, talking to patients, providing education. And as I said before, people want to talk to nurses. They want to talk to their doctors. Most of the time they can't. But they don't necessarily want to talk to the person who's selling them something or trying to sell them something. So utilize nurses if you can. And you know, look up that dispensary, Verde in New Mexico, just to see what they're doing, because, I mean, it's honestly, I think, what we'll be seeing a lot more dispensaries doing going forward. All right, and these are just some little best practices I wanted to share, because these are some things that I feel just need to be said. So dosing, when you send someone home with a bag of 50 milligram edibles and they've never taken an edible before, you might want to and give them clear instructions on how to take, what to do with that 50 milligram edible, how to take it, you know, do they need to cut it, you know, what would be an appropriate dose for a beginner. Again, I hear over and over again, a patient went to this dispensary, they bought something, it was too strong, and they're never trying it again. And as we know, an edible, unfortunately, that effect will last a very long time, can make people very uncomfortable. So we've lost someone who could really benefit medicinally. All right, how many cannabinoids are there? Thank you. There is more than THC, and there's more than THC and CBD, right? My customers are looking for those strains that, I mean, they want CBG, they want CBDA, they want all of the benefits of all the cannabinoids. So let's tell them how much of what cannabinoid is in our products. You know, they're interested in that. They're learning. I'm teaching them about it. They want to know. So let's tell them if, you know, there's CBC or CBG or what's in it. They want to know. It's not just all about the THC and the CBD. And it's, you know, for a lot of people, it's not about that really high percent THC. They want more of a balance. You know, they want a 1-to-1. Maybe they want a high CBD. But, you know, I know there's a focus on what people are testing out when it comes to THC. And for medical patients, that is not necessarily their focus. All right. So like I said, I'm from Missouri. Oklahoma has 2,500 dispensaries. Missouri has none open. I mean, maybe October, we'll see some open. But because patients can get a temporary medical card here, most of my patients are coming down to Oklahoma to get their meds. And I don't encourage any like federally illegal behavior or activity, but when they don't have access to medicine up there, they're gonna go to states that have access to medicine. So, you know, especially in Oklahoma, like, I mean, get people to come down here for the weekend, you know, get people to come to your dispensary. There's no reason why people from Arizona or Oklahoma cannot be advertising to people in Missouri. I mean, there's no reason why they can't, because those people need a lot of medicine and they're not gonna have it for a while. I don't know how many months it'll be before they actually see like edibles or carts or any of that, but it's gonna be flower for the first couple months, and we've already been waiting for 2 years. So find ways to get people to come down to your dispensary in Oklahoma. All right, so if you're a dispensary owner, I'm assuming you had some sort of like onboarding, staff training, right? Well, with the research that is coming out with cannabis and science and medicine, make sure you focus on that continuing education. You know, find a way to make sure that, you know, your agents or dispensary agents, bud tenders, whatever you call them, you know, have an hour a week to read an article you want everybody to read, or to review something really important that we know about cannabis. So then they can be able to pass that information along to their patients or your customers. So something that a lot of patients talk to me about is how like a dispensary looks and feels. And I have a lot of patients who are on a really tight budget. They're older, or, you know, cannabis is accepted in Oklahoma, but most states it's pretty expensive. And they don't want to walk into a place that is like, you know, that's really overly luxurious and glamorous. They want it to just feel safe and comfortable. So it really depends on your audience and who you're marketing to, but I have, you know, people who talk to me about that. Well, I walked into that place and now I know why their stuff is so expensive, you know? So just like think about those things when you're setting up shop. So I see a lot of video monitors in dispensaries. I see a lot of handouts, and I've learned actually a ton of information from bud tenders. So just make sure that you have opportunities for people to learn verbally, visually, kinesthetically. Make sure that you are giving bud tenders the opportunity to show patients how to use certain products. I mean, all the time I have people send me pictures. How do I use this? You know, so that's all important. You know, if you can, let the patient take it out and feel it, and just give them lots of opportunities so they don't go home confused. So when I walk into a dispensary, I usually hear, hey, can I help you find something? It's, I think, pretty much what I have heard at all of them. Well, you know, maybe you can tailor those welcoming messages or engaging messages based on what that patient may need. So, yeah, what can I help you find? But, you know, you really want to have a conversation that starts a dialogue. You know, you want to ask those open-ended questions so patients will open up and patients will share, you know, what they're really looking for, how much experience they've had, you know, what effects, what symptoms, all of that is so important. So you always want to know their level of experience, you want to know what delivery methods they've thought about, and you want to know their goals. So those three things will help you determine what products may be more appropriate. Okay, so there is so I did work for a pharmaceutical company in sales for a couple years, and right now there's really, I mean, the cannabis industry is amazing. There's all these innovative new things happening, and it's really exciting to see so many companies have the opportunity. But I think, you know, we can still learn some things, what has worked in healthcare in the past. And I think that there are actually some things that we can learn from pharmaceutical companies and what they're doing. So there was a patient support program that I worked on, and it was really just setting nurses up with individual patients, calling to check on them, you know, calling to ask how they were doing, calling to ask about their condition. It wasn't even really calling to say, hey, are you taking that medicine you're paying $4,000 a month for, right? But eventually that would come out. But it was just using a lot of motivational interviewing to see like how the patient was doing and how we could help the patient. Did they need a referral to a nonprofit for something? Did they need a help, with their Medicare application? I mean, they had resources, and not always, the nurses weren't necessarily doing that stuff, but, they developed a relationship with them. So if they had a side effect with a medication, they called us and they said, hey, something really weird happened. I wanted to talk to you about it. The nurse would walk them through that, right? Was that a side effect that's ever been reported? What if it was? How can you manage it? Should you call your doctor? If a medication stopped working, they were going to call that nurse and tell that nurse about it. So they weren't just stopping their medication, they were calling the nurse and getting more education from the nurse. So they call it really a patient compliance program. And I know that compliance is kind of a bad word, but honestly, compliance does promote better health outcomes. So over and over again, we have seen, and there's a list of just some studies, right? The nurses have been shown to be the biggest influencer of patient compliance. It's not us calling to pressure them and talk to them about them taking their medication. It's that relationship that they have with the healthcare professional that is so important. And I'd like to see that more in the cannabis industry. So we actually have a program coming soon where we would like to do that with dispensaries, where patients have the opportunity to enroll. They would get a call from a nurse basically before they got started to make sure that they understood how to use the device or whatever product that they had. They would have a nurse's number just in case they needed anything, they had any concerns, anything came up. And then you check in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, and 6 months to make sure that they're using the right products and that they're using the right products from your dispensary, right? So there is some information on this card about our patient support program. And then this card also has like some information on our dispensary training as well. So that is going to be up here. So when it comes to providing specific guidance or recommendations, as much as you can, just let the healthcare professionals do the dirty work, honestly. It's, I have learned over the last 5 years how to give that guidance and make those recommendations and talk to patients about dosing without actually providing medical advice or making those recommendations. It takes a little bit of a certain skill, some different verbiage you have to use, but no one can really be telling a patient to take something medical. So I think everyone just needs to be careful, let the nurses do the dirty work. There's a couple journals up here, but we do have a treatment journal that it's my COVID project. I was a little bit bored at home. So this journal, we co-brand with a couple dispensaries, and so you have your logo right here is the treatment journal. So of course it has my story, right? How I came to cannabis, how to use the journal, some information on the cannabinoids and what they do, terpenes. I love everyone talking about terpenes these days. How to manage side effects is in here. And then generally, I just feel like for the new patient is so important because I talk to people all the time and it's, well, I tried this and I really liked it. I'm like, well, what was it? They never remember, they don't remember what strain. So this helps them evaluate how they're feeling before they consume and then how they feel after they consume. I know there's apps out there, but when you write it down, your brain is more likely to remember it. So and people still like writing things down. So I think this is a really efficient way to get patients to find what is working for them, to establish a treatment plan that's going to provide the most medical benefit, therefore the most medical benefit outcomes. Sorry. Okay. So here's our information, our website, email. Do you have a mic? Do you want to see if anyone has questions?
As a cannabis nurse, what benefits might you say one could get from CBD or THC?
Oh, I mean, there's over 200 conditions that we already know that have been shown to be improved with cannabis or CBD. So one of the first things in here is a list of those 200 conditions. So bipolar, inflammatory bowel disease, all these things can be influenced by cannabis and CBD, but it really goes back to our endocannabinoid system, and we're all basically deficient in that department, and we need to heal our endocannabinoid system so we can heal other conditions as well. So it helps everything. I don't know if I answered your question, but and thank you for attending. I do appreciate it.